It is now my pleasure and honour to welcome onto the stage-ish Carlos Moedas, who is European Commissioner for Research, Science and Innovation, to formally open proceedings and share his thoughts on the way ahead with us. Very warm welcome, Commissioner, and over to you, sir.
Thank you very much. Great pleasure to be here today. Such a full room of people. And I just want to say that I'm really honored to be here, and I really want to first to thank all the people in the DG that organized such a great conference. You know, on the 25th of April this year, an earthquake of magnitude 7.3 hit Nepal. To get real-time geographical information, the response teams used an online mapping tool called Openstreetmap. Openstreetmap has created an entire online map of the world using local knowledge, GPS tracks, and donated sources. All that provided on a voluntary basis. It is open license for any use. The most striking thing is that Openstreetmap was actually created by a 24-year-old computer science student at University College of London. Today, there's around 2 million users and has been actually one of the major drives in terms of digital, humanitarian, and also commercial purposes. It went from Nepal to Haiti. Then it was used for the Ebola outbreak in West Africa. So, you know, this is a story, is actually one of the many that demonstrates that we are moving into a world of open innovation and user innovation. And we are very lucky because I think tomorrow you will have the opportunity to listen to the father of user innovation, Professor von Hippel from the MIT. So it's a different world, a world where the digital and the physical are coming together, a world where new knowledge is created through global collaborations involving thousands of people from across the world and from all walks of life. In the next 2 days, I would like really us around here to chart a new path for European research and innovation policy. A new strategy that is actually fit for purpose for a world that is open, digital, and global. And I would like to set out at the start of this important conference my own ambitions. What do I really want to do? What is my vision in this world that is merging in between the physical and the digital? But it will not be right if I would not start by the beginning and look at how far we have come in Europe and celebrate how far we've come. When my predecessors started this journey 15 years ago, the European research area was conceived in a physical space. Therefore, it was focused on the physical cooperation and mobility of researchers in different countries, and in a flow of knowledge that had to go across national borders. But if we stand back from the detailed policy discussions and look at the bigger picture, we'll see that just how much progress we made in Europe. Cross-border research cooperation has become a wonderful, everyday reality. Mobility is also becoming part of the normal. How many researchers do you know that haven't traveled, that haven't really worked with different people in different countries? I think that 1 in 3 EU researchers have been internationally mobile over the last 10 years. And there has been an 8-fold increase in the number of jobs advertised on Euro Access since 2007. That's around 10,000 job offers on any given day on this portal. So today, we have a single integrated European program for research and innovation. But I think it's time to complete this first chapter. It's your job, it's my job to actually complete the European research area as it was and the Innovation Union. We have to take those final steps. And for me, those final steps are 1, launching this coming year the new Resaver pension that will allow researchers to move more easily between member states. And so in June next year, in 2016, I will convene a meeting with all countries who have introduced the national European research area roadmaps to complete this first chapter. We have to move on to the next chapter. So, what do I mean by this? I mean, this first chapter was about the physical European research area. It was a bringing together research and innovation that were divided. So the next chapter will be about opening up our research and innovation systems and bringing together the physical and the digital. So let's turn ourselves for the challenges. And as new commissioner, I've spent the last 8 months listening, visiting member states, looking at evidence, developing my own views. And you know, when I look at Europe, I really see strengths that I don't see anywhere else in the world. I see that we are open. I see that we have diversity like nobody else in the world. We host great institutions, and with Horizon 2020, we are, like, for the first time, funding at an unprecedented scale. But we must be honest about the challenges we face. And they are, for me, 3 big challenges in Europe. The first is that we are not succeeding, or I would put it, we are too rarely succeeding in getting research results to market. Technologies that are developed in Europe are most of the times commercialized elsewhere. This cannot go on. We have to do something about it. Second, that always puzzled me, is that Europe generates actually the more scientific output of the world. But we definitely fall behind sometimes in some areas on the very best science. At the same time, it's quite amazing because we are in the middle of a revolution in the way science works itself. Every part of the scientific method is actually becoming open, collaborative, and participative. And that gets me actually to my third challenge here, which is that Europe unfortunately punches below its weight in international science and science diplomacy. If you think about it, there's actually quite recent that we're talking about science diplomacy. And our collective scientific importance should be matched by a more active voice in global debates. So you are wondering, Or probably you're thinking, you know, we know those challenges, but what is he going to do about it? What is Europe going to do about it? And I think that we have to actually get our strengths, think about our assets of being open, of the diversity, and actually put it at an even higher standard. And that's why I've chosen as my 3 priorities open innovation, open science, and open to the world. But then, what am I going to do about it? What is the European Commission going to do about it? Let's start by the first objective, which we called open innovation. Open innovation is about really involving 4 more actors in the innovation process. Researchers, entrepreneurs, users, governments, and the civil society. We need to start capitalizing on the results of the European research and innovation. This actually means to create the right ecosystem, increasing investment, bringing on more companies, regions, and actually areas into what we call the knowledge economy. Sometimes people ask me about my country and the crisis. And you know, I think the crisis is self-explanatory about a Europe that was focusing on a rent-seeking economy, having to go from that rent-seeking model to a knowledge economy model, to a high-risk, high-reward Europe. So what I really would like to do would be to go faster towards these objectives. And so the first question is, are we doing the right thing? Are we actually making sure that the legislative process that takes several years can adapt to technologies that evolve every month? This is a very important question. How can we make sure that that regulation is actually based on an innovation principle, but at the same time takes in account the precautionary principle? How can we live in a world that actually is evolving every day? We have to create regulation that has to adapt itself to the future. We don't know what's going to be the future, so we have to create a way of adapting to a future that we don't know. It's like everything we're doing today. I mean, our children, they are studying, but we don't know what will be the professions of the future. Our researchers are researching, but we don't know what they're going to actually create. So we have to create these frameworks. We have to do it, and I hope that I can help on that. The second comes from something that I've been working for a long time, and actually my trip a couple of weeks ago to the US was basically, or made me actually kind of corroborate everything that I have been thinking. I always thought that innovation is about an ecosystem. I always thought that in the middle of that ecosystem, you always have an university. Around that university, you have companies. Around those companies, you have people. You have students. You have human capital. But then, you have to have financing. And in Europe, 80% of that financing is bank financing, and 20% is alternative sources. In the US, is the other way around. So venture capital is key for the ecosystem, and we have to be able to change that paradigm in Europe. So I would like to address that problem head-on through the development of one or several European funds of funds that will invest in new generations of great European innovative companies. I'm working very hard with Vice President Katainen, with my colleague, Commissioner Jonathan Hill, about how we can actually get it to the next level. How can we change the paradigm of financing? Then we have to think bigger than Horizon 2020. And we have to think, how can we actually make more impact? And you know, when I looked at the structural funds in Europe, and you see that you have 100 billion of the structural funds to actually invest in innovation and science, and Horizon 2020 is around 80 billion, there was something that I really needed to do. And so I got together with my colleague, Commissioner Cretu, and we are actually about to introduce what we call a seal of excellence. And what's that seal of excellence? It's basically, if you have a great project, if you go to our Horizon 2020, but if you cannot get funded by Horizon 2020, then we will be able to have and put a stamp of excellence to help that same project to access the structural funds. These will allow regions to support their most promising companies, those companies that are recognized as excellent at the European level. You know, sometimes in politics it's not about the big steps, it's about very small things that actually can make a difference. And I think that these, that can seem to you eventually a small step, I think that can make a huge difference. Then we have to make, actually, really look at, are we doing the right thing in innovation? And when I go around Europe, what people tell me, and I told you that I'm normally a good listener, people tell me stories about the European Research Council. Researchers tell me that is the best thing that happened to them, that we should and could and really should think about having more of that in what we do. So my vision here is that really I think that we should all together think about a European Innovation Council. And when I use the word European Innovation Council, I'm using it because I want to create something that goes around that model. A model that is actually what the user wants. That's what the researchers are looking for. So the innovators, that some are researchers, some are not, they are also looking for the same kind of possibility. And so we should be looking at it. This will not be for tomorrow. But when one of my predecessors long ago thought about the European Research Council, was not also for tomorrow, but will be there. I want to discuss it as a major element under the midterm review of Horizon 2020. So a Europe geared towards innovation, that's my open innovation side. Then we have to think about open science, which is actually the theme of today's discussion. And I'm convinced that excellent science is the foundation of future prosperity, and that openness is the key to excellence. And a lot of times we're told that it takes a long time, that it takes many decades for scientific breakthroughs to find commercial application. But let me tell you a story which shows the opposite. You know that graphene was first isolated in the laboratory by Professor Geim and Professor Novoselov at the University of Manchester in 2003. They won the Nobel Prize for it in 2010. And the development of graphene has since then benefited from major EU support. ERC grants for Professors Geim and Novoselov. And the first time I heard Professor Geim actually talking about science, he said that today sometimes the link in between research and innovation is too long. So when a kid looks at one of these smartphones, he has no idea what's behind because it's too long. And so I'm proud to show today to you that really graphene went from a very fundamental science to something that can be available in the market. And thank you, Luc, for letting me do this, because now that's the risky part of my speech, is if it didn't work, it's probably not going to work. But let me try. No, it worked. So you see, this is fundamental science turned into a product. And what you see here basically is a light bulb which actually uses thermal dissipation of the graphene as a property to achieve actually greater efficiency and actually hopefully to have a longer lifetime. So on the interest of that, and to be sure that it's not going to go off, so now I'm going to put it off myself before, and you can come here and see it later. But when Luc here present showed me this the other day, I thought, you know, sometimes we have these ideas preconceived about fundamental science, about innovation, what's one, what's another, and you know, it's not black and white. And so there's a lot that we actually can show in terms of how European fundamental science, that is really the engine, can actually be transformed so quickly. And that brings me to science. Science has to be always about excellence. Our program has to be about excellence, period. To promote actually excellence, not only with the ERC or the Marie Skłodowska-Curie grants, but all over Horizon 2020. And so, how can we actually go onto that excellence? How can you actually have this concept of open science working? The first thing that I'm preparing, and that I've actually agreed with my colleague, Commissioner Oettinger, is actually prepare ourselves for a call on a European Science Cloud project in order to actually identify very quickly the possibility of creating a cloud for our scientists. Some of our scientists are in organizations where they have their own cloud, or they use a different cloud, but some not. And so we have to be able to actually look deeply into this subject, and we are launching a call on the subject. Why? Because we need more and more open access to research results and the underlying data. Open access publications that you know it's already a requirement under Horizon 2020. It's just the start. We now have to start really looking seriously at open data. And these will mean setting standards for the management, interoperability, and quality of scientific data. I would like to see progress on these on the next 12 months. And I want to see what further support or requirements for open data should be implemented in Horizon 2020. So I hope that you can help me on that. Second, I think time came for us to actually have a European initiative on research integrity. Because if we want to be open, if we want to really be open to the world, be open in terms of science and data, then we have to be very serious about research integrity. This will be a subject of one of the sessions tomorrow, and I really am looking up to have those discussions and to learn from those discussions. So we should launch a new European Research Integrity Initiative with clear standards and mechanisms to tackle scientific misconduct by the end of this year. These will not only boost scientific excellence, but it will show to the public that the European science is above all reproach. And that's what we really want to be. To have and to be a beacon and an example of integrity. And finally, my third point, open to the world. Europe has been a global leader in science, and actually we should translate that in a leading voice in a global debate. To remain relevant and competitive, we need to engage more in science diplomacy. And it's not sufficient just to support collaborative projects. It's not sufficient really to just try it. We need to enable partnerships between regions. Challenges in areas like energy, health, food, water, and global challenges are actually at the brink of change of the whole world. We cannot be alone. So Europe should be leading the way in developing global research partnerships to address these challenges. This means speaking with one voice, in close coordination with the member states. You know, the first project I visited was EDCTP in South Africa, where you see really science diplomacy at work. When you go to Kaelisha, a 500,000 people shanty town outside of Cape Town, where 80% of the people are infected by tuberculosis and a major part of them with AIDS. Then you see the impact you have on people. You see the impact that you have really in science diplomacy, where you're actually putting your money where your mouth is. So my ideal, my vision would be that we can actually go bigger in terms of the research area. We call it the European research area. But I think we should go bigger. We should go into Latin America. We should go into China in terms of the European, in terms of those research areas. So I've actually already talked about the creation of a common research area with the Academic Summit of Heads of State and Government of the European Union and the Community of Latin and Caribbean States. But now on Monday, I will actually co-chair the EU-China Innovation Cooperation Dialogue, where I will talk again about this idea of enlargement of the common research areas. So what I'm going to do concretely in these points. First, I will work on having more in terms of the Atlantic. We have created the Galway Agreement, which is basically an initiative for the north of the Atlantic. Now I'm working on the south of the Atlantic to create and to enlarge and to be able to have a similar and a common research strategy for the south of Atlantic, mirroring this idea of the Galway Initiative. Then I always say that my four sectors, the four sectors that will actually change in the next years, the world, are food, water, energy, and health. And so I'm working very, very seriously in being able to create this Mediterranean program called PRIMA, which is a joint research program that has been created, and now we have to get it to the next level on water and food in the Mediterranean region. And finally, we have to do more as Europe in investing in projects like the particle accelerator in Jordan called SESAM, a project that actually unites around the same table people from so different backgrounds that will never sit in another table. That's when you see people from Iran, scientists talking science with Israeli scientists, with people from Palestine, with people from Pakistan, from Egypt, all together. We have to put more money in those kinds of projects because they are life-changing. We have to create bridges. And the bridges that we can create today in Europe are with science. Because people talk science, and science is really a common language, so you can count on me for that. So this conference is our opportunity to actually complete the current European research area and innovation actions and to move forward. This new innovation era, as I call it, must be based on actions and not words. I have mentioned a few examples today, but there's no doubt that we have so many other possibilities. We should not be afraid of testing new ideas and piloting new actions. The Dean of Harvard University normally says to her students, a key part of any success is the part of you that is willing to fail. And I think that's what sometimes is missing here in Europe, is that we have to be willing to fail, to be willing to succeed, to actually do it. And so we must have the discipline to stop those which are not working, and the ambition to scale up the projects that really work. Research and innovation must take a long-term perspective and not to be trapped by the past. And we must make sure that each one of our actions brings new entrants, young researchers, dynamic entrepreneurs, and people who have never been involved in European research and innovation. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is not just another Commission conference. This is your chance to feed your ideas and aspirations into this new strategy. We will find out soon enough what works and what doesn't, and we build on our successes together. You know, when innovators like Lego start fusing real bricks with digital magic, when citizens conduct their own R&D through online community projects, when doctors start printing live tissues for patients, policymakers must follow suit. We actually owe it to the European citizens, we owe it to the future generations, so let's dare to make Europe open to innovation, open to science, and open to the world. Thank you very much.